Technology has changed how we connect, create, and even care for ourselves. But it's also made a lot of noise. Few people are really trying to make it quiet again. My guest today, Ramy Elnagar, is one of them. As founder and strategic partner at White Mirror, Ramy helps brands and institutions use emerging technology to design experiences that feel meaningful, not mechanical. I think it's really important, that change. His work blends science, digital art, and behavioral insight to explore how design can shape emotion, attention, and well-being. It's thoughtful, sometimes challenging, and rooted in the belief that progress should serve people, not just systems. In this episode, we're going to talk about the evolution of wellness and sensory design, something we're very passionate about at Matter of Form. We're going to discuss the fine line between innovation and indulgence, something that I'm personally very interested in, and also what tech for good might look like when empathy becomes the ultimate luxury. Ramy, welcome to What the Lux.
Good afternoon.
So let's start by talking through your path. What key moves led you to founding White Mirror?
I started as a very frustrated business student. I went to advertising, realized really quickly I'm selling my creativity for another product. I left, I set up my immersive technology consultancy, and we were doing VR, AR, AI, all the acronyms. And I thought by using technology, I'll find more purpose and more change in the world around us. 3 years later, again, exchanging creativity for tech's sake. I left and we started White Mirror. White Mirror is this almost philosophy that we live in the black mirror at the moment. And it doesn't need to feel always doom and gloom, but there are realities that we live in on a continuous basis. Every time I've had the privilege of having a very deep spiritual experience in my life, I would look at my work and go, there's a dissonance, there's a friction. Like I'll say something on the weekend and go like, this is how we need to change the world. And on Monday, my creative briefs are just not landing with my philosophy and my value system. So we found that like intentionality makes a really big difference when you step into a room and you allow people to go like, how do we move from just like function, here's a bed, to form, here's a beautiful bedroom, to transformation. Like how do you come into a space and learn something new about your anxiety, your sleep, and you leave a better person from the moment you stepped in. So my journey has been a journey of frustration and seeing a world that's slightly in decline, but the flip side of it is there's so many problems to solve.
Talk me through the spiritual side of Ramy, because you spoke about, that you alluded to that dimension. I'm interested to know more about what you think, what you engage in, what shapes you as a person.
I was very influenced by psychedelia as a young man. And I was very fortunate to try it at a teenage age. And the connection it gave me to the natural world, as you know firsthand, the glory, the mystery of nature, the raw, invisible made visible through it is incredible. But then you have this dissonance when you come back to your normal state, to your normal life. I'm a very skeptical person when it comes to the wellness industry. Many people who know me and work in my environment know that I love the practice. I love breath work. I love yoga. I love a lot of the individual practices that exist in our space. But I feel the dogmatic nature of those practices can be a bit complex. Like I find that whether you're a biohacker all the way back to a new age person, both are cults. And I think we need to step back a little bit and be a bit less dogmatic and remind ourselves that each of us just need to balance tools, a little bit of spirituality and a little bit of tech. Like I had a panel earlier this week around sleep, and I was talking about this concept of orthosomnia. When people wake up in the morning and grab their phones and they have a sleep tracker, and they go like, why is my sleep score not good enough? They create the sleep performance anxiety. And the other extreme obviously is a full rejection of technology, is we're going to live full analog. And I'm like, people used to live till 30 before technology. So we owe it a lot of our well-being. So Ramy is, I guess, a person who fights both sides. I don't like biohackers, I don't like new ages, and I love that technomysticism. I believe technology is almost like the extension of nature, like we made it through natural organic matter. And it's coming back in a way to remind us to come back to the natural world. Like I sometimes fetishize artificial intelligence as the voice of nature coming back to us, going like, just a reminder that I'm still here.
It's interesting because technology is such a harsh word, isn't it? And you think of sort of grey boxes when you think of technology.
Exactly.
But actually, you know, when you describe aspects of what nature delivers as a form of technology, it sort of slightly softens or sort of blurs the distinction between, you know, human-made technology, we're organic beings making other things, you know.
Exactly. It's just when it became a little bit like more silicon-based that we forgot that this thing is actually the same as this thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because there's a lot of pushback in the wellness industry, for example, around, you know, the label of organic or the stand against chemicals, you know, but the truth is everything's chemicals. You know, chemical has started, it sounds like a dirty word, doesn't it? But you know, but actually everything is just a compound, is a combination of things. No, you know, there's no such thing as anything that's chemical free.
But I think the way we package it is interesting because obviously it's all a question of priming and labeling. At the same panel, they asked me like, what is too much sleep tech? And I'm like, listen, circadian lighting, great. Noise masking, great. Layer of vibroacoustics on the bed to do vagal toning, great. But there's a difference between bringing guests to a room and saying, look, here are low vibration frequencies and functional soundscapes and neuroscience. You're like, or here's a beautiful bedtime story done with a gentle voice and the music, and it'll help you regulate your nervous system and you'll love it and it helps you go to sleep. If you want to learn more, it is almost like the power of storytelling supported by technology, as opposed to it's tech first in your face. And I think it's the same thing, just the framing of it feels more like a lullaby or a bedtime story as opposed to tech. I think the framing is really key. To go a bit philosophical, there's a friend of mine who's an amazing mind when it comes to like speculative design and technology. And he talks about how we live now, obviously, in the transhumanist era. So technology making us better, faster, stronger. This has been the last few thousand years of technological evolution. And he feels that we're about to shift to, we don't have a name for it, he calls it hyperhumanism, whatever you want to call it. And it's when technology is becoming a tool to help us understand what it's like to be human. And that I find fascinating because anything from the overlap between, I heard the word death tech recently, the overlap between death and technology that's opening questions around like, when someone passes and you clone their voice with AI, that's bringing the dead back to life. It's a question around like death, and like it helps us question deep aspects of our humanity. And when we do virtual biophilic experiences, people ask us like, why? Just go to the natural world. Sure, but when you put natural phenomena and you capture them with LiDAR scanners and a lot of technologies, and it makes the invisible visible. It shows you fractals and aspects of nature that are so specific that you're like, it blows you away. The mission here is to make you fall in love with the practice and to remind you, wow, I don't spend enough time in the natural world. So technology is not coming to replace the natural experience. It's just showing us a lens of it that we didn't necessarily think of. So I think that's the fascinating part for me. Like the mystery of the natural world is incredible. And the more we learn about science, somehow it opens more questions about the natural world and whether nature and virtual nature has the same effect on your psychophysiology. It's almost like I don't mind the tension between, like people say tech versus nature. When you're just putting the juxtaposition already, we have a problem. Why isn't it technology and nature? Like if I can inspire someone in a spa environment to have a virtual biophilic experience, and then they go home and they sit with their kids and go like, listen, because I had a deep, profound experience, I think we should spend more time in the natural world. That's a beautiful level of transformation in a wellness environment. And I was chatting this morning to an amazing colleague of mine, and this idea of like deep transformation in the built environment for me is a big thing, because everything we design is actively designing us back. And, you know, like the object is designing the maker, the space is designing the individual. And we talk a lot about relaxation in the sense of multisensory, like your senses are here to relax, like the scent, the smell, the light. And I find like relaxation should almost be the minimum baseline that we achieve in a space. Like how can my bedroom teach me how to sleep better? How can the spa environment connect me to nature more? How can my office not be a machine of productivity, but a space for flow? So like if we put a KPI of our spaces to transform us, and we always leave these spaces better humans, I think it's really fascinating. And so back to the tech versus nature, like we get criticized often because we work with amazing artists like Marshmallow, Laserface, who spend spectacular time in the natural world recording and scanning, and they ask us why use technology, why not just the natural world? Like fast forward 30 years, the natural landscape is shrinking by the day. Like having access to natural areas and urban spaces is not very common. So if we can even give like a person in a hospital a virtual biophilic experience,
Yeah.
we're giving him something.
Grown building materials like Neri Oxman and people like that who are doing things that might change what we use to build things and make them more organic.
I think I sit in a long list of people who have a crush on Neri Oxman.
I have a crush on her.
I think, hey Neri.
Yeah.
I met someone recently who works in New York at an amazing sort of like innovation hub for architectural practices. And I asked him like, I know you crossed path with Neri back in the day. Why isn't it everywhere? Like, it's amazing. It's fascinating. It's this true embodiment of biomimicry. Like making something look like a lotus flower is not, okay, it kind of is biomimicry, but she really embodies biomimicry.
Yeah. And she's sort of high profile enough as well to
engender change.
You know, to make some of this stuff happen.
I think Neri Oxman is an amazing researcher and spatial sort of designer, if I would call her, that does a lot of like research and development where she would borrow a lot of aspects of the natural world and like bring it to the built environment. Anything from designing like biomorphic materials to actual architecture that learns from the natural world, how it cleans itself, how it can breathe better, how. So it's like learning from organic forms to bring to our physical
right through
structure.
to like growing materials.
Exactly, with moth and
like a spider's web, like is famously sort of strong enough to stop a bullet.
So the line I heard was, imagine to make a brick, how many farms you need to just make that one brick. If you want to build a big building, it's just like the supply chain maybe allows for a beautiful piece of sculpture or a room like this, but maybe not for a stadium or...
Yeah, okay.
It's a perspective from someone. I love the work. Like
even so that's the perspective as to why it's not rolled out at scale. Because it's like a lab experiment rather than a commercially viable.
I think there's a lot of also lobbyists that want to keep the built environment and materiality and the current supply chain as it is. Like, it's not even a question of education. It's a question of like, what do you want to see in this world? And if you work in metal and cement and concrete, it's like, you don't want to see that change.
Exactly. So it's like pharma or like,
it's systemic change, right? Like, I ask myself often, I'm giving a talk next month around intentional spaces and experiences. It's the idea that, similar to what I said earlier, like how can we design environments and experiences that not only have a positive effect on your psychophysiology, but that leave you with better habits? And in my mind, I'm like, well, how do you push this message so that every architectural practice, interior designer, people, students in university are asking themselves, not just like function form, but how, like, function is defined by engineering and technology, but not human flourishing. Like, how do we make it our social responsibility to always make sure you leave feeling, oh, great, or more focused, or, like whatever the state on demand is required in that space? And it's a hard question.
We optimize around the wrong thing, don't we? And actually thinking about the emotional hypothesis of an experience and then understanding behavioral psychology and how you create building blocks that lead to that change is like not really thought of as like a goal enough.
I think it depends what we're trying to do. Like, I was having this conversation yesterday at a cafe that was so loud, and it reminded me of these early 90s experiments where when you make an environment very loud in terms of music, people will get a bit more anxious and consume more. That's what we're measuring against. We're still measuring against increased consumerism. And I do feel there's a start of a shift. Like when you look at things like well-being real estate, it's a big topic as of the last couple of years. A lot of the amazing work from the Global Wellness Institute, the research and showing that, look, like people will pay more if you give them an environment that makes them grow and flourish and just passively feeling better. And that gives me hope, because I know that at least for developers, even if their main agenda is not well-being, if it's a 10%, 20% premium on top, they will go the extra mile to help people feel better. So if we know that the wellness ROI is people will pay more for the space, then let's make it good for them. Let's help them feel more fit, more sleep, more in this. Then I think people would do it.
So how do you define things like tech for good?
Going on the artificial point we discussed earlier, like one is having just a clear intention. Like, why is it? What is it doing? I've been off social media for 5 years. I work in tech and it doesn't serve me. It doesn't mean tech is bad. It's just the values that it holds at the moment as a social networking platform don't serve me. And I think because we're the digital fire, we're the first Stone Age men of the digital age, so we just used it wrong for the first time. Instead of becoming a hive, like connecting people for the first time, we sold it to the biggest advertiser.
We're the real guinea pig generation.
Fully.
You know, I really believe that as well.
Fully. We are four-wheel bike, learning how to take one off at a time and crashing, and it's fine. I guess the second thing is around like agency. So how much agency does it give you? And I think like this is the AI problem. Like we're losing the agency, like to feel in control of something. I think ultimately like tech for good is technology that, as my friend says, like teaches you how to be human. You know, like it's interesting to think about this question you asked around digital versus analog. I think the solution to hyper digitization is not having a room with records and cassettes and a cabin in the woods. I actually think it's experiences that allow people to have deep moments of transcendence, of awe, to connect to each other. Like when we design a immersive experience that people step into, you know, like you walk in, you've got water going up to your knees. You know, the team at Marshmallow went to the Amazonian rainforest. There's these amazing trees and flowers. And so you're going inside, you have your robe, you walk in, the water's going up, you lay down on these vibroacoustic lily pads, and you're having this embodied experience of 24 hours in the ecosystem in 24 minutes. Spatial sound, like you're in the Amazonian rainforest, you're embodying the tree. And in the end, you have this beautiful flower called the Queen of the Night that opens very slowly in front of you. And it's a flower that blooms one night a year and it dies. So it becomes the story of death, of impermanence. And I think like we've seen people leave this environment and connect and talk and actually reflect on topics like death and impermanence. And so I think like if it's technology and experiences and art that touch the deep nature of our soul and allow us to question values, to see things from a different lens, but ultimately to think for ourselves, you know. The problem with things that take from you as opposed to give you, like for me, social media, in my personal case only, is it takes from me. It takes my attention. It takes my ability to think for myself. I'm always comparing to other people. And technology that gives you back is like that. It's like an experience where you sit down, you're like, I've been gifted a new perspective and I'll see what I can do with it. And that for me it's a bit of an ambiguous answer.
Yeah.
But being gifted something back that you can take and think about, for me, is
being provided a perspective rather than having your perspective taken away.
Yeah.
It's and I think for that, you know, it's like if you have the answer fed to you and all of your senses catered for, there's not much room for the imagination, isn't there? It's why perhaps when growing up, the equivalent for us was why it's better to read a book rather than watching television.
That's it.
You know, one inspires the imagination and the other provides the stimulus where the imagination might once have existed.
That's what I mean by like the sense of agency. I choose to do that. And the agency is like even the irony of something called agentic AI. Like it's a big era of agency. Like what is yours and what is given to you? What do you choose to give or to take? And like we did a piece years ago. It was a virtual reality experience helping doctors in the palliative care unit work with patients who are terminally ill. And these are patients that are 100% going to die. And it was a virtual experience where you were dealing with the patient. And then when you were ready, you would switch bodies with the patient and kind of look at yourself and understand, why am I speaking to that person that way? And you were trained on like holding space for them, making sure that you're not using the wrong terminology, not giving false hope, but also holding space for their families, because like care is not just keeping someone alive. Care is making sure that you don't traumatize everybody else. And my grandfather passed during that project. I told him like I might be one of the subjects of this experience.
Really?
And so giving a doctor in the palliative care unit like a perspective, you know, like what is care with a capital C? For me, this is like really empowering tech, because they leave thinking like, okay, like I understand my job on a physiological level, but there's a whole spiritual lens to me holding space for someone, even if they are going to, especially if they're going to leave this world. How do we send them off with the biggest care and make sure that the families are really well taken care of in terms of communication and expectation management? And we had that. Like my grandfather passed and we had false hope, and you'd rather hear the truth in a clean way than get that like false double negative, you know?
Yeah, true. That's really interesting. Is there like a project that best captures the spirit of what White Mirror seeks to achieve?
There's something we talk about in the studio, what we call experience as medicine. I think that encapsulated both myself and the work that we do. It's really a dream of mine to transform most wellness spaces into these like immersive biophilic sanctuaries. Because I feel we need to have a shift from spa as a space for relaxation to bring it back to old, maybe not Roman definition, but like the thermal was something else. It was where everybody came to come together to talk philosophy, to converse, to. So I think we need a revival almost of the thermal space where you go inside and you expect social connection, you expect deep transformation from this kind of experiences. And it's very exciting to see what's happening in that space. We're launching at the end of this month with one of our clients. They're called Thermengruppe Joseph Wund in Germany. A deep listening sauna.
Yeah.
It's just a sauna where we worked on a hi-fi sound system, like custom case so they don't melt inside the heat.
That's like my dream.
And you go inside and you sit down and they have in front of the sauna this big bird cage, which at the beginning we're like, why is there a bird cage? They're rescues. So if they leave them in the wild, they wouldn't know how to survive. And so we put these sensors around them and they control through their movement and sound this generative symphony that's changing in the space.
How cool.
And so as a sauna, almost your base layer, again, function is sweat.
Yeah.
On top of it, it's a social wellness space.
Yeah.
And the new layer we're adding to it, the transformation is, could we, during your everyday sauna practice, teach you how to deep listen? And so it's always interesting that every space, even a sauna, a basic sauna, can become a moment of transformation. Because if you do this on a weekly basis, fundamentally, you're a person who knows how to listen. You spend 20 minutes daily doing a mindfulness practice, trying to listen carefully to a sound, and no one's allowed to speak. And that's so fascinating.
I mean, just reconnecting with yourself, the process of just feeling embodied, is so healing. You come out of a meditation retreat, technically doing nothing, for a week, completely changed inside, and providing people new paths to achieve that same end, that age-old end, which is just connecting with your body and moving energy from your head into your self. Is so powerful.
That, and I think democratizing it more, like how often do you know people who do Vipassana or get to go on a medicinal journey, or it's quite a niche club. Like we're privileged to be allowed to go into these spaces. But I think like democratizing well-being is really key, and the built environment does it well. Like we don't always have to go to the Amazonian rainforest or to India to do Vipassana or whatever, I think bringing these lessons from these incredible spaces and masters into our everyday environments and allowing millions, if not billions of people to do this, for me is where it gets really exciting. And yes, sometimes it won't be the level of purity or rigor or the perfect Vipassana that you would do there. But if I can put you in space for a couple of hours in darkness and allow you to desensitize and ground, it's not the same thing, but it's close enough. And I think giving moments of restful peace for people in this daily hyper activity, like today we were making this joke, where would you go during the day in London to down regulate if it's not a spa? It's cold, it's raining.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy? A city of 10 million people, like, where would you go to down-regulate? Nowhere. That was like the big, we need deep listening cafes. We need alternative sensory spaces. We need safe spaces for people who are, like highly sensitive. We are all highly sensitive. People think like there are certain populations that are highly sensitive. I believe we are all prone to be in heightened states, and we need space that's just down-regulate. We talk a lot about sensorial profiles as well. Like when we did these vibroacoustic studies a few years ago with a brand called Sensate. Sensate is this little pebble you put on your chest, and it just vibrates at a certain frequency. And it turns your body almost into an instrument. It tones your vagus nerve. It calms you down. And half the people in the study were just falling asleep. And this was like between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. because they were taken out of their minds into their physical body. Just a little thing that's vibrating on your chest. But I think the sensorial profile here is when you put your hand on someone, they can be jumpy. And you can put your hand on someone and just turn around and just look at you. So their sense of vibroacoustic, the sense of touch, is very different to the person before them. I think the next frontier in this sensory design space is like personalized sensorial experiences. That's like the holy grail of our space. And I think AI will help us unlock a lot of that because we need a lot of data. Like we need to know, why is this light annoying me since we started, and then you seem very comfortable with it. Like we need to understand what's good for which kind of human and what are the kind of profiles. Like people are visual people, sonic people, vibroacoustic people. But then when I'm heightened, if I'm upregulated versus downregulated, I'll be more sensitive to some things or more accepting of some things. So that's the thing that I'm most fascinated about, is like we will maybe get to a point where we might do adaptive sensorial spaces. Maybe it's biometrically based. Maybe we just know because you're that kind of sensorial profile. So the space just knows and adapts to you. And that's a very exciting thing, especially in private environments like bedrooms. And
yeah, I was going to ask, do you think that'll be brought more and more into the home? Or do you think that will become an aspect of sort of like domestic architecture people think about?
I'm not very well educated on this topic when it comes to shared environments because it's quite difficult. Like, what is the average heart rate between the 4 people that are sitting in the space? It's a number.
Yeah.
So you might be high, I might be low.
Yeah.
So our average means not much. And in shared environments, it's hard to control these kind of sensory settings. But in private spaces, yeah, we can. We absolutely can. So if we know that a person is a night owl versus an early riser, we can keep the environment loud enough or low enough to keep you either stimulated or prepare you for sleep. In the sleep design panel that we had, I think what's fascinating for me also is the idea that can you design for sensorial comfort in some of these spaces? Like one of the things that bother me when I go into a hotel is when I go into the bathroom before I go to sleep, always a flash of white light before.
Yeah.
That's a cortisol spike. That's an interruption of my melatonin. So I think like the first level is just like, can we cleanse the space completely? Like blackout, can we have like ambient music playing inside? Can we have adaptive lighting, like reddish amber in the evening? So if I'm doing something, it doesn't spike my cortisol. But then you have the active layers of sensory design. So like we've done experiments where we hack the dimmers in the room, and then you do light guided breathing. So the whole room is getting brighter and dimmer.
So it's pulsing, is it?
So you're just breathing in with the room, and they're designed based on box breathing, for instance, or 4x4x4. So suddenly the senses are driving this mindfulness practice. And same thing, you can lay down on the bed and have this vibroacoustic experience, similar to a sensate. It helps to tone down your body and ground you down. So we look at like passive sensory experiences and active sensory experiences.
I think the passive side I find quite interesting. Like we've been doing brand projects recently where we've been working with hotel brands to, like, if the brand means this, then what is the sound of a corridor?
Yeah,
sonic branding. What's the like sonic quality, but like ambient sonic quality, and what kind of frequencies create what kind of moods, and how can you sort of reshape rooms with sound, not with musical sound, but with sort of ambient tone, in the same way that you often reshape rooms or intimacy with light. And it's just often sort of overlooked.
The elevator should be the first point of contact for me, because you have shared spaces and the elevator is the first point of privacy before you go to your room. So already elevator and hallway can be amazing portals to signal to the brain, look, we're about to bring it down. Soft lighting, ambient music. It's an amazing moment to allow the safety to become, more present with you. And there's something called the first night effect, which is when you sleep in a new space, your brain is half asleep. Because from an evolutionary standpoint, if you slept next to a new tree or a cave, there's a predator in the area, you don't know the area, so your brain keeps you up as a evolutionary quirk. So even outside of sensory design, like, can you invite people to do a little ritual when they arrive? Whatever it is, could be breath work, could be, and just allow them to stare at the space and to feel calmer and safer in the space. Just to tell the body, look, yes, it's an unfamiliar space, but you're safe. Because there's no way to have a perfect night's sleep if you don't downregulate the individual. Like, it's your first night in a new space. We're all pretty doomed. Some are more sensitive to it than others. I am very sensitive to it. And I think the education factor is interesting. I know this hotel in Portugal called Octante.
Yeah.
And they would leave you with a little pouch, like a sleep kit. And I remember being educated on this topic of the first night effect. And so this little kit that I carry with me now has little objects of mine that I hold dear from my home. And every new room I go into, I put these objects and I make my little altar. And that's my little corner in that space. And so I create the familiarity in an unfamiliar space. But also from a brand perspective, I always connect that relationship to that specific space, as you taught me how to improve my sleep wherever I go.
Yeah.
And from a guest engagement standpoint, I feel the evolution is from, let's give you a nice experience, to if I can influence one behavioral quirk in you, you will always remember me because of that.
I completely agree with that. If you can get people to do something, they'll post-rationalize their belief system supports their action.
Absolutely.
But also, like I do the same with scent. It just brings me into a space, and I travel a lot. So like I just need a bit of a red thread between places. But I think it's interesting what you touch on. Like we've been doing a lot of ritual design for hospitality groups. And the thing that always amazes me is how ready people are to embrace a ritual.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? You sort of think that they're not. You're just like, God, who in their right mind is going to like
planning meeting, and you're like.
But people want like little rituals. They want little delightful things, little delightful ceremonies that mark like different parts of their day. I mean, we live by these things.
Absolutely.
And you know, and they encourage a level of behavior, like you said, which will ultimately create love, and your brand will always be at the center of that sort of the exchange or the ritual, you know, the invested effort, the memory of it. But also they switch your state, you know, they move you from sympathetic to parasympathetic. They change the context in which you sort of review your surroundings, you know, they change your mode.
Absolutely. I could not agree more with what you're saying. Like we always, whether we're designing an experience or a ritual, we always assume people won't do that. I think we live in such a meaning crisis.
Exactly, 100%.
That what you're giving is a sense of meaning. Like both the personal touch, we cared enough to go into a moment that is actually quite profound for you. Like, and second is, it's a moment of meaning. Like it's meaning making. Like we're not only into place making as a business, we're also into meaning making. And I think that meaning making, as we talked about AI, will become so absolutely important that can I even allow you to take this ritual with you, and it becomes your little piece of sanity that you carry with you from place to place, your totem.
When you use AR, VR, you know, AI, I mean, all of the portfolio of acronyms, you know, for whatever jargon seems to represent whatever anxiety CEOs believe they have to invest in next. How do you actually separate meaningful use from like the gimmick of things? You know, how do you really interrogate the role of technology in delivering like the transformation that you seek when you're designing things?
As often as we can, when we look at our design process, we always say like we try to imagine the future of the space we're going to. Like we do a foresight exercise. We imagine changes in technology, society, and we narrow down as much as possible to how will people eat, how will they pray, how will they relate to each other, how will they have sex. Like we imagine to the smallest detail that world we're going to. But then when we start the design process, we always try to ground it in the natural world. Like we look at how do we look at forest bathing as the basis of an experience? How do we look at your breath as a basis of the experience? Like I find the more you ground into nature as a source, not just of inspiration, but just as a source of how we design the experience and the project, you almost naturally like going to the ultimate teacher as the source of design. Then we bring the science and the sensory science, then the technology, and then we wrap all of it with a layer of art, because we believe people need to feel it at the end of it. So it's not necessarily like whether it's VR is good or bad, or AR or AI. Like the acronyms for me don't hold intention. They're empty containers.
Yeah.
But the intention that you put inside of them makes difference between a VR experience for fun versus a VR experience for training a doctor to work with a dying patient. It's really the intentionality. Like the spiritual industry killed the word intention shamefully.
Yeah.
Intention is everything, you know?
Yeah.
Intentional spaces and intentional experiences are the difference between pure aesthetics and transformation. Clear as day.
Yeah.
Like at the end of it, what am I trying to do? Allow you to leave as a person who's feeling better, stronger, more empathetic, sleeping better, whatever you want, than the moment you stepped into the space.
Yeah.
And playing in this very strong tension between natural intelligence and artificial intelligence is where the sweet spot is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very well put. We have a couple of outro questions that we always ask our guests.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad that we've reached them already because I quite like to have spoken for longer. But
Episode two.
Episode 2, yeah, we'll do it. Firstly, what would you change about your industry if there's one thing that you could change, a perception or just
The name.
like a norm?
The name. I
Really?
don't like the word wellness.
What would you change it to?
Call me if you figure it out. I don't
Okay.
know. Like we use the word human flourishing, but because of the gentrification that you mentioned around, like, you know, it's just your breath. How do you turn it into a Lululemon situation? Like wellness as a name for the industry almost like limits it to just well-being as a state.
Mm.
And when you start looking at deeper transformations, like we spoke about death, we spoke about psychedelia, we spoke about nature, all of these for me almost like transcend the word wellness. They're deeper topics. Wellness for me is a state, it's a tool. So like almost like in the business of human design, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting. We'll go to the sauna and discuss it.
That's it.
What's the thing that most concerns you about the world that we're leaving the next generation? Well, will we ever leave them a world, or will we still just be around?
The cheap answer is Trump, but no. I hope that we learn how to keep spaces for dance. I will literally stick to that one. Like,
Okay.
They say younger people are having less sex, they're drinking less, they're doing this and that. I hope they just will not dance less. Because dance, the club dance, pick one, is our real postmodern ritual.
Mm.
This is what we've invented in the last, reinvented in the last 100 years through ambient music and electronic music.
Well, electronic music I think is so interesting because you know, sometimes you stand there and you're like, you know, is this a sort of function of sort of technology and sort of technology as an instrument, but really it's a recreation of what we've been doing for
sure,
for like thousands of years.
I think
it's the most tribal expression.
I think we've rebranded a lot of things, but this one we've done it very well. I find this is our 21st century church, for lack of a better term. Like I've had spiritual experiences there that override any wellness practice.
What's so weird is like if you go, and I find this is only true of like psychedelic trance festivals, but that it's like a sort of it's the only genre of music where I've gone to festivals, which I did in my teens, before I moved to slightly slower BPMs. That it was like a sort of the dance floor was like a village, you know.
Yeah, I'm lucky to live in Portugal, and like Boom Festival for us has become our home. Like we go there, and it's a week-long container for actual genuine transformation. I see people that go in shy and uncomfortable, and you go out, you're like, wow, you're glowing, you have this openness, because it is an incredible container for transformation. Like
Boom's a special place. Okay, if you had to give up your job tomorrow, what would you do?
I just go run the club.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. You've got your life raft. And then lastly, what's the most exciting thing for you in the next couple of years? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
I'm hoping it's going to be that meeting with Reed Finley. Reed, if you're listening, I'm coming to see you. He's the temple designer. I have this strong intuition. It's between him and a lovely man called Orfeo, who used to be the drummer for Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. And we're meeting in Ojai to sit down and discuss like how do you design secular spaces of worship. I hope that a lot of the experiments that I'm doing now all come together as learnings, so that when the moment comes to build the spaces that really matter, although I care about my clients very deeply, but to build these incredible spaces, that all of these lessons of ritual, of sensory design, and of experience will merge into this playbook of like spiritual spaces where we can come together and connect non-dogmatically, and celebrate non-dogmatically, and pray non-dogmatically, and feel nature non-dogmatically. And I think that, thank you for AI for making that something of a priority, because it will be.
Ramy, we'll see you at Burning Man.
See you at Burning Man. Thank you.